The road to responsible government. Welcome, grade 7s, to lesson 6.6. How did Britain respond to the issues that were raised by the rebellions of the earlier lessons? So stick around and let's learn something. Lesson 6.6 is the number. How did the British respond to the issues that were raised by the rebellions in both Upper and Lower Canada? That's what we're finding out today. This is all about the road to responsible government. And we're going to go back a lesson and we're going to talk about how the reformers and the patriots, they shared one common complaint. That was that the governor and the councils that the governor created, remember the family compact and the Chateau Clique, they were not following the will of the people. So how are we going to have a response or what is the British response going to be? Are they going to continue ignoring all of these wishes from these colonies in Upper and Lower Canada? Or are they somehow going to meet these demands of the people who are elected to represent them? So what is it that we're going to do? It's kind of hanging in the balance here. Well, they decide on sending out somebody by the name of Lord Durham because the British were concerned about these rebellions. They were impactful enough that the British needed to make some sort of decision. So in 1838, Lord Durham, he comes to Canada. And this guy is a wealthy British noble and politician. So right there, that might tell you that we might have some issues, especially with the people in Lower Canada. But he was given a job. The job was given, we need to find the answers. What's the deal with these rebellions? Why is this unrest? And he spent 5 months here in Canada. Now, 5 months in 1838 is not that long of a time. So his time here in Canada was short. And overall, he made two main recommendations. So after all of his work and his investigations and all that kind of stuff, he made two recommendations. Number one, unite Upper and Lower Canada into one colony. And number two, grant responsible government. So this brings us to the Union of the Canadas. And you would think that this is the creation of the country of Canada, but no, it's not. It's not. So we're going to take a look first at the causes according to Lord Durham. And he said that the problem was actually coming from Lower Canada and that the conflict there is to blame. And he said that it's two warring nations in the bosom of a single state. So in other words, they're the same, is what he is saying. And he didn't hide his prejudice, and his prejudice showed through. He called the Canadiens a people with no history and no literature, which we know in our story of Canada, if you've been paying attention to any of these lessons. The Canadiens have a very unique story, a very unique history. So obviously this is going to make the Canadiens very upset. He failed to recognize that Canadian culture being very unique, and he didn't credit the Canadiens for their contributions to these colonies. And we know from previous lessons there was a lot of contributions made by the Canadiens. If it wasn't for the Canadiens, the British North American colonies would not have been as successful as they were. And he went on and he was saying that we need to remove the French language. We are going to do this by uniting the two colonies. Eventually, the French are going to be absorbed into British society, and obviously, well, the British are going to be all for this. And in 1841, we have the Act of Union. And the Act of Union, which happened in 1841, unites these two colonies into a single colony with two provinces. Upper Canada becomes Canada West, so where present-day Ontario is. Lower Canada becomes Canada East, where Quebec is going to be today, and parts of Labrador. And English is going to be the official language. Only English is going to be the official language. And obviously, the Canadiens are going to be very unhappy with this. The Durham Report was controversial because it recommended the assimilation of the French, so the Canadiens, by creating this union between Upper and Lower Canada. So we're forcing assimilation. That's never a good thing. Durham was very much hated by the Canadiens, but his report was very important because his report led to achieving responsible government. So he wanted responsible government. So in responsible government, the elected representatives represent those actual citizens that are electing them. So by having these elected representatives represent the actual citizens, the governor would follow the wishes of the citizens, and the governor is then going to be kept in check. Okay, so we have like a check and balance. Obviously, the British don't like this idea. The British were in complete control before. They obviously wanted to be in complete control again, but they were opposed to this. And in 1848 is when we first start to see this. So reformers win the election in 1848. A new governor is appointed. Lord Elgin is appointed, and he puts Robert Baldwin and Louis LaFontaine in charge of leading the reformers, and he agrees to let those two reformers advise Elgin, the governor. That's huge because in 1849, a bill is passed, the Rebellion Losses Bill, and Governor Elgin does not like it. That's responsible government. That's what the people wanted. That's what was pushed out. The bill passed, and Lord Elgin had to accept it. All right, I want you to head over to your notebook and complete the questions for this part of the chapter.